They called it the Dark Ages, 1,000 years of ignorance, decay, and silence. A void between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance, where nothing of value was created. At least, that's what you've been told. But what if I told you the Dark Ages were never really dark? In this episode of Unfiltered History, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the greatest historical myths ever told, and uncovering 1,000 years of brilliance hidden beneath the shadows. Unfiltered History, the myth of the Dark Ages. What they never taught you: when Rome fell in 476 CE, the Western world didn't descend into a mindless abyss. In fact, some of the most critical foundations of our modern civilization were laid during this so-called Dark Era. Yes, there was chaos, invasions, disease, and political fragmentation. But there was also innovation, preservation, and evolution. Take the monasteries of medieval Europe. These weren't just spiritual sanctuaries, they were data centers of the ancient world. Monks didn't just copy religious texts. They preserved classical works from Aristotle to Cicero, by hand, one manuscript at a time. Many of the ancient texts we have today exist because of them. Meanwhile, far from the war-torn remnants of Rome, the Islamic world was flourishing. In Baghdad, the 8th century brought about one of humanity's most intellectually fertile institutions, the House of Wisdom. It was here that scholars translated Greek, Persian, Indian, and Roman works into Arabic, and more importantly, expanded on them. Did you know that algebra comes from the Arabic word al-jabr? Or that Ibn al-Haytham developed the scientific method centuries before Descartes? Or that Avicenna's medical texts were used in European universities until the 17th century? While Europe was supposedly asleep, the Islamic world was writing, curing, mapping the stars, and in doing so, building bridges back to the knowledge that would later power the Renaissance. But let's not forget medieval Europe. It wasn't stagnant. It was evolving. The Carolingian Renaissance of the 8th and 9th centuries under Charlemagne sparked a revival in education, the arts, and law. Scholars like Alcuin of York reformed schools and preserved both Christian and classical knowledge. And what about architecture? Some of the most stunning and mathematically advanced buildings in human history came from the medieval period. Gothic cathedrals, flying buttresses, rose windows, and even mechanical clocks. These were not the creations of a barbaric age. They were products of deep knowledge, precise engineering, and high artistic vision. So why do we call it the Dark Ages? The term was popularized in the 14th century by Petrarch, a Renaissance poet who wanted to celebrate his own era as a rebirth of civilization, and to do that, he painted the previous centuries as a cultural void. Later, Protestant historians used the term to attack the Catholic Church, portraying the medieval period as oppressive and anti-intellectual. And then came the Enlightenment thinkers, who further pushed this idea to make their own age look like a beacon of reason. In reality, the Middle Ages were full of curiosity, learning, and layered complexity. Were there dark moments? Absolutely. But name one era of history that wasn't marked by turmoil. We've inherited a distorted timeline. One where progress supposedly paused for 1,000 years, only to miraculously reappear in Florence with Michelangelo and Da Vinci. But the truth is, there was no pause. There was a relay race of knowledge, from Roman scholars to Arab mathematicians to Christian monks to European reformers. Every Renaissance had a foundation, and the so-called Dark Ages built that foundation brick by brick. Imagine how different our perception of the Middle Ages, and the people who lived through them, would be if we honored their real contributions. The Dark Ages were never truly dark. The darkness came from our misunderstanding, from centuries of elitist storytelling, propaganda, and historical revisionism. But now, you know better. So next time someone claims we lost 1,000 years, you can tell them, we didn't lose time, we just lost the truth. This is Unfiltered History. Subscribe to reclaim the past, one myth at a time.